I'm Sean Embrock with this edition of the Hgp Sportscast. There is an unwillingness to see the transformation of cricket in Guyana, the region, and internationally. This is the view expressed by one cricket history commentator. Find out more in this report.
Well, it's when they're in trouble like this. But you see, West Indian cricket has always been run as if it's a private property of a small number of people. That's been a great weakness. You need to widen the people who control the game. We had a lot of committees requested this change the way cricket is governed. But the WICB does not want the current structure change fundamentally. And I think the GCB supports that. And that will continue until sense will eventually be. I think though the situation is not as bright as it should be, eventually sense will prevail.
Professor Winston McGowan. The professor in his interview said too that a definite stance is required by an unwilling WICB in Guyana's situation.
Right. The WICB should come in the matter, investigate the issues, because they got two sides, a great contention. Hear the evidence and make a decision. Correct. And take it from there. And if they discover that the current GCB that they were supporting is really at fault, is not really as legitimate a body as they thought they were, they have to take decisive action. But the WICB doesn't seem...
Professor McGowan indicated too that should the focus be cricket as the pillar, change could be near.
Are we interested in the best welfare of Guyanese West Indies cricket? And once that becomes a pillar in everybody's approach to cricket, things will change eventually. But the ICC will eventually have to do something, unless the ICC would change, because ICC could change this thing easily as well, but they'd not be ready to change either.
Fighting each other will not bode well for the sport, but supporting each other and allowing for the duly elected executives to serve their allotted term in office would be the way to go. Professor McGowan also reiterated that holding fresh elections and making the change, if necessary, at the next due elections, if the body performed unsatisfactorily, would also be commendable. Top squash player Larissa Welcher, who performed remarkably well at the 2015 Caribbean Advanced Proficiency Examination Cape, shared with Hgp Sports how sports benefited her studies and her thoughts on being one of the best players in the Caribbean.
I play squash either before lessons or after lessons. My life is basically school and squash. Some people may think that that's a sad life, but I love it. I think squash makes me more competitive in terms of being able to fight against other people. I like competition, I like schoolwork, and so bringing both of them together makes my life more meaningful.
Wilshire recently competed in the Caribbean Arena Squash Association's junior competition in Barbados, where she enjoyed a third-place finish as she helped Guyana retain their 11th consecutive overall title. She shared her reaction to her Cape results.
When I found out that I did really well for Cape, I was really happy because I put a lot of hard work into it, and balancing squash and school sometimes can get a bit stressful and it can be time consuming. So when I found out that I'd gotten 6-1s at Cape, which sometimes some people would say is almost impossible, I was really happy because it's like a dream come true.
Larissa believes she needs to improve on her shot selection and fitness aspects of her game. She shared with AGP some of the special training she's been working on.
The mental part of the game is also very important because if you psych yourself out, then you wouldn't be able to play. Even if you're better than the other player, you'd still be on the lower end because you don't think that you can win.
Larissa, who is ranked 3rd for juniors in the Caribbean and 16th at the senior level, will be leaving for Samoa next week, where she will be competing in the Youth Commonwealth Games 2015. She spoke about her plans in furthering her studies.
I was recently offered a scholarship by the government to go to any university that I want to. And I'm still deciding where I want to go, but I really want to go to UE, the Capeville campus in Jamaica, to pursue dentistry, because I think that UE is a really good school, and I really like the idea of going to Jamaica and learning about their culture. as opposed to Guyanese culture.
Matches 13, 14, 15, and 16 will continue on Thursday at the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall in the GT futsal competition when another 8 teams engage each other. The first game kicked off at 7 p.m. with North Rumville taking on BV. Game 2 will match Showstoppers and Broad Street. All Boys Town and Alexander Village will make Game 3, and West Front Road will face Sophia in the last game to end Day 4 of the round robin. FIFA Inspector Dr. Stephen Baker inspected the Guyana Football Federation's Providence ground as local football moves closer to achieving a stadium. More from Calvin Chapman.
Today's visit is for the inspector to do an assessment of the ground, the soil, the sub-base, and to go back to FIFA and recommend the appropriate next steps. What we need to put in place as a fundamental step before we can start to lay the artificial synthetic turf.
Chairman of the GFF Normalization Committee, Clinton Erlin, whose tenure is almost over. Erlin stated the investment cost of the project and the purpose of the prospective works.
That's a $100 million investment. Drainage is of paramount importance to the entire project. We want to ensure that once we lay the artificial turf, the place or the area don't flood tremendously. If for some reason that entire turf floods over, then we have a problem. So that's why we have the inspector here to ensure that we make the adequate preparations before we lay down that pitch.
Erlin explained where the funding for the facility will come from.
It's more than just the gold project being realized here today. Guyana is one of the recipients of what you call the Challenger. The artificial turf actually falls under the Challenger project. And the gold project, Guyana was one of the first countries to start the gold project maybe some 15 or 20 years ago. We will finally continue or recommence Gold Project 1, which is already approved. Gold Project 2 is already approved for Guyana.
He further shared some of the proposed functions of the facility.
The first priority for the Football Federation is to build a facility that will make the Guyana Football Federation self-sustainable, generate revenues. And to do that, we'll have the pitch on the Challenger going on. We've envisioned maybe a mini stadium with 3,000 to 6,000 seating capacity. We'll have changing room, dressing rooms. We'll put up lighting around. So we can do 2 things. We can have a technical center where our teams can train and play and learn the game. And secondly, we can use it for revenue generation for the Guyana Football Federation immediately.
And that's our sportscast. Now for a look at the weather forecast.